Greetings, Sentinels fans. Today I wanted to do a deck from Rook City Renegades, but due to several factors I wasn't sure which one to do, but I eventually landed on the Realm of Discord, so let's talk about it. The Realm of Discord. Possibly the weirdest location in the game, at least in the lore. In terms of mechanics, not so much, though it can make for some fun situations. So, let's start with the cards that didn't make the transition between editions. First of these is Ethereal Bonds, and this one I'm happy has fallen away because this card would attack a hero, and that hero would not be able to deal damage that round. It made it a bit frustrating to deal with, especially with its hit point count of 9, which is not terribly high, but still annoying, especially since it muzzles one of your heroes. The only other card that didn't make it over was Imbued Vitality, which I kinda get. It's a wild effect that would be an issue for bookkeeping. This card turns all ongoing and item cards into targets with 6 hit points each. This makes it so that setup cards could be punched into destruction. Now, ongoing destruction is not so rare that you usually feel the need to punch a villain's setup, but if a villain has good area damage, your own stuff would be in trouble. And I'm pretty sure they all have area damage in their arsenal. This also means that you'll have to keep track of the hit points for all your ongoing cards. And considering that Argent Adept came out in the same expansion as the Realm in Enhanced Edition, you might have a lot to keep track of. There is one person in the community who dislikes playing Captain Cosmic because they don't like having to break out all the hit point tokens to keep track of all the construct health. Yeah, I can bet that player probably doesn't like Imbued Vitality either. Anyways, on to the next list. While there are brand new cards unique to Definitive Edition in this deck, I will go by 2 different types of cards in the DE deck, and touch upon the newest cards last in each section. Let's start with Distortions. Now, every Distortion in the Realm has text saying they destroy all other Distortions in play, making it so that there is only one active Distortion at a time. These Distortions affect the entire field, often hitting both heroes and villains. Now, since about half the deck in Enhanced Edition and 2/3 of the deck in Definitive are Distortions, if you don't like a Distortion, then there is a pretty good chance it will get replaced on the next environment turn. But also a decent chance that it won't. It becomes a bit of a gamble whether or not to spend an environment destruction card on one. All of the Distortions with roots in the old game have changed a little, except for Pervasive Frailty, unless you count the fact that it was renamed from Imbued Frailty. It simply increased all damage that targets receive by 1. Next up would be the Positive Energy Field. Both versions restore health to the targets with the lowest hit points, the amount of targets determined by the amount of heroes playing, 1 point of healing each in Enhanced Edition, and 2 in Definitive. The triggers are different though. In Definitive, the healing happens at the end of the environment turn. In Enhanced, it happened every time a card is played, so potentially a lot of healing can happen if the heroes or villain are very active in putting cards on the table, either healing your heroes a lot, or making minions really hard to beat down. I think I prefer the old method, as it makes for more interesting decision making for your heroes. We will go from the positive energy field to the negative energy field, which does basically the opposite thing, though this one was renamed to Miasma of Pain for some reason. It hurts the healthiest targets, the amount again determined by the amount of heroes playing, and in Enhanced Edition this card deals 1 infernal damage to the highest HP targets, and in Definitive it has the targets deal themselves 2 fixed infernal damage. The triggers are the same. End of turn in Definitive, and every card played in Enhanced. Again, I do miss the old trigger. I think it could have made for more interesting situations. Next on my list is Claustrophobic Delusion, which I cite as possibly the most annoying card in the Enhanced deck. It made every non-hero target on the field immune to damage, except for the target with the lowest hit points. And I don't need to tell you that that ain't fair, especially since the environment itself has targets that you will need to cut through, so even solo villains can benefit from the shielding. The ones with minions can be a problem. In Definitive Edition, the card was changed so that all villain and all hero targets are protected except for the lowest HP targets from both, while environment targets are still vulnerable. This makes this card a lot more fair and possibly even hugely beneficial to the heroes. I would say it's overcorrecting again if it weren't for the fact that minion-heavy fights do still get a huge boost. It can be quite the slowdown, especially for villains who can get a bunch of targets in play, or villains with very resilient minions. And now let's slow it down. Time Crawls is one that's had half of its effects changed. In both versions, it affects the heroes the same way. When this is on the field, every hero must either skip their play phase or their power phase on their turn. It cuts your action economy in half, something that can be quite devastating, and it forces you to consider what is more useful: getting cards out or using your powers. Now, it doesn't prevent you from playing cards or using powers. So if you have a card that lets you use a power, or a power that lets you play a card, you are still fine and dandy. It does make you think about what is going to be more useful right now. For me, that is usually card plays, as it allows for setup and good one-shots. But a lot of heroes have very useful powers, so it might be better to use those. Or you could have a hero that does a lot of work at the start and end phases, and as such are not as bothered by this card. The differences here are the effects against the villains. In Enhance, it reduced all damage dealt by villains by 1. Pretty simple, quite useful, but not fully fitting the theme of the rest of the card. In Definitive, it prevents the very first end phase effect the villain does, which will almost inevitably be on their character card. Now, I'm not sure if this means it deletes the entire block of text, or if it just eliminates the first measurable effect, and things that react to it. Either way, the benefit of this can be very villain dependent. It can be a good little break, or it could be something very minor. Regardless, it's unlikely that skip can really make up for cutting your action economy in half. Alrighty, now a couple of the new distortions are actually just changes from the other cards that didn't used to be distortions. Spinning Vortex in Enhanced Edition would pop up, give your heroes the choice to break their stuff, and if any heroes still have setup cards out, they would get hit for 3 damage before the Vortex vanishes. Definitive Vortex has a similar spirit. It destroys 1 hero ongoing and 1 villain ongoing before hitting everything not native to the environment deck for 1 fixed damage. A lot more equal now, less irritating. The other distortion card that used to not be a distortion was Ghostly Images. In Enhanced Edition, this card would reveal the top card of each hero deck. It would play all one-shots revealed and discard any other card. If their card was discarded, then that hero deals themselves 2 damage, and then the card destroys itself at the end of its turn. Definitive Ghosts has a similar idea. At the environment end phase, it looks at the top card of all non-environment decks in turn order and plays the one-shots it finds, discarding the others. 3 notable differences. Upon discard, it no longer damages the character, which I think they could have kept so we can maintain the theming of people being scared of the ghosts, and it's not such a major thing to be game ruining. Second, the card now also affects the villain, not just the heroes, and as such, it could give the villain a card play. This is the replacement downside, potentially helping the villain, though I will still say this card is heavily slanted towards the heroes. Third, as a distortion card, it will stay in play until another distortion shows up, which again, probably won't be long as 2/3 of the deck is made of distortions, but it might end up being more than 1 turn. Now, there are a couple of distortions made up wholesale for Definitive Edition. Buffeting Ephemeral Winds was made probably to provide an inverse for Pervasive Frailty. All targets receive 1 less damage from all attacks. Simple and easy. The other one is Reversed Gravity, which causes all targets who enter play to deal themselves 2 damage. It's funny that the Harpy is on this card since the Matriarch would be heavily affected by Reversed Gravity, but the Harpy would not be quite so much. However, regardless, there is still the issue that on the environment's end phase, each hero has to discard a card. Well, I guess standing on the ceiling would be disorienting. But now we move on to the targets, the denizens of the realm. First, we have Explosive Bubbles. In both versions, the bubbles deal damage based on their hit points, but how they do it is a little different. Enhanced Edition's bubbles have 5 hit points, and the amount of hit points determines the amount of targets hit, with the 5 healthiest targets if the bubbles are at full health, or only 1 target if the bubbles are on their last hit point. Each hit is only 2 damage, but still. In Definitive Edition, the bubbles will always damage the top 3 hit point targets, but the amount of damage is determined by the hit point count, though these bubbles only have 3 hit points. But they have the extra wrinkle that they reduce all damage they receive down to 1, meaning that if you don't have irreducible damage, you'll have to hit them 3 times in order to get rid of them. The other denizen that made it over to the new version is the Portal Fiend. This adorable little monstrosity did completely change effects though. In Enhanced Edition, the Fiend will act before the environment plays a card. attacking the non-environment target with the second highest hit points and amount of damage equal to the amount of cards in the environment trash. This means that early game it will hit you for a small time damage, but it will ramp up as the game goes on. As already shown, the realm will not keep its cards around, so there is little you can do to mitigate the damage unless you destroy the Portal Fiend, which, unless you have environment destruction, will take a while, since it has a whopping 17 hit points. That's half an Iron Legacy right there. All in all, a low priority target, but still potentially irksome. In Definitive Edition, not only does the HP count drop to 11, but the damage has made it to 3 the whole way. The new Fiend also has end phase text, where it will reveal the top card of the environment deck, and then if it's a Distortion, it gets played. Or if it isn't, it's discarded, and the Fiend heals. Overall, less dangerous, but quite chaotic. And this last denizen is a new one for Definitive Edition. And this one I wanted to save for last because it is wild, yo. I introduce you to the Oracle of Discord. This is one of the new concepts brought in by the podcast. It's an entity, or hive mind, or group of entities, that is able to look into other universes and show them to people that find the Oracle. They are used as a framing device for Disparation, the what-if/Elseworld stories of Sentinels. The card in the environment deck, though, is crazy. When the Oracle enters play, it does one of two things. First, it gives you the choice to either do nothing, or select a hero character card and switch it out for a variant of that hero. This was something that couldn't really be done in the original game, since you only have one version of each hero. But in Definitive, you're guaranteed at least 2. But additionally, after you swap variants, you set that hero's hit points to the maximum of that variant. That is a little extreme. Say you were playing Haka, and have been very adamant about taking hits for your teammates, and you get the crap kicked out of you. Well, surprise, you get 20-30 points of healing immediately. What if, in the potential future, Akash 3 enters the game and has the same huge health pool she had in Enhanced Edition? On the flip side, say this is the first environment card that shows up and the most healing you get is about 5 hit points. It won't let you choose an incapacitated hero though. Now the card offers an alternative effect upon play where instead of swapping out a hero variant, the Oracle just deals 2 damage to everything. Doesn't that just seem odd in comparison? Like, why would players take this option? It seems like an effect that would be a net negative for your heroes, to replace an effect that would at worst be a net 0, or at best an enormous net positive. Well, I can think of one reason that is tied to the Oracle's other effect. At the very end of every environment turn, check for the target with the lowest current hit points, and discover an ongoing card from its associated deck. If you can make it so that you can destroy an existing villain target, or use clever math to make sure one of your heroes has the lowest hit points, it could mean extra stuff in play for you, or one less extra thing for the villain. It should also be noted that the environment has a few targets, including the Oracle itself, so it can start churning more distortions as well. What's more, there is room for more crazy with this card, as it could be destroyed by damage. While I don't think it's possible yet, I can see a future where environment cards could be taken from the trash and moved back on the deck, or destroyed in the place before forcing a reshuffle, thereby potentially creating a situation where you could swap out several heroes for healing and new powers. I'm just saying, think about this card when heroes that mess with the environment come up. I will bet that there will be a crazy effect to be had. In the end, I'd say the New Realm is an improvement, as it actually is more neutral compared to the Enhanced Edition version. I think the potential healing from the Oracle might have been a bit of overcorrecting, but not to a crazy extent. I'm on the fence when it comes to the distortion balancing, since the 2/3 coverage makes it pretty certain of new effects joining in, as opposed to EE's 1/2 coverage. If more environment control shows up, then it might be different, but as of now, the chaotic flow really fits the name of the Realm of Discord. And that covers this one. I apologize for the delay, my motivation kinda got shot by recent events, but I am not giving up just yet. Take care, friends, and keep saving the multiverse. So if you have a card that lets you use powers... Get out of here, moth. Pretty simple. Quite... Go away. Spinning Vortex in Enhanced Edition would pop up, give your heroes a K... What the heck is the spelling of this? Chaoixe. That is supposed to say choice. What the heck? And that covers this one. Hello? Of all things to interrupt recording, a job interview is not one of the worst.